This is the China Hollywood Greenlight podcast, episode number 40.
And rolling sound, quiet.
Here we go. Ready.
Speeding. 120, take 7.
And action.
This is Caryn McCann, the host of the China Hollywood Greenlight podcast, a podcast about creating and distributing content for both Hollywood and China. If you like the show, please go to iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, subscribe and leave a 5-star rating, or retweet this on Twitter or Weibo or wherever you use your social media apps. These social media shares really do push the visibility of this podcast. Before I introduce today's guests, I'd like to start out with a motivational quote to encourage our listeners to continue on their path to achieving their own green light. And today's quote is from George Eliot, and he said, "It is never too late to be what you might have been." A quick update on what I'm working on. I made a change to the China List website. As you know, this is a membership website to connect writers and producers in Hollywood and China. I've changed the format, so starting next week, writers can upload their screenplays and producers can download them directly from the website. Originally, producers had to email the writer directly and request the script. However, that took too much time and was inconvenient. So, writers to get your screenplays in the hands of producers and producers to read and hopefully option or buy that screenplay, it's best if the process is seamless, convenient, and fast. So, starting December 22nd, 2021, writers can upload their screenplays to the China List website. Producers and talent reps, membership to the China List is free. You can also post calls for tailored submissions on our private writing jobs page. Just go to https://chnlist.com and sign up on the How to Work With Us page. Writers, get your material seen in Hollywood and China, and you can post requests for Chinese or Western writing partners on our private writing jobs page. This benefit is to find a writing partner, and it's free to writer members. Just go to https://chnlist.com and sign up. Today's podcast is a roundup of the best advice of 2021. During the interviews, the guests gave great nuggets of wisdom throughout the interview. So this compilation is only a few snippets of that advice. If you haven't listened to the following podcasts in their entirety, go back and listen. Each guest offers a treasure trove of knowledge and experience that you can use for furthering your own projects. And now, here is the main segment. In episode 30, Why You Should Avoid Back of a Napkin Agreement, American lawyer and China media expert Jesse Weiner gives advice on how to protect your IP in China, what you need to attract a Chinese financier, and hope for a reset of U.S.-China relations. Jesse says that speaking Chinese is very helpful. He gives encouraging words to those who give even just a little effort to learn a few words. Here is what he had to say.
Well, for sure, I guess maybe this goes to kind of how one can help themselves. And I just think about maybe my drawbacks or something. When I first started, I first went to China. I didn't speak a word of Chinese. I'm sure many of your guests, I'm sure, have said this one before, and everybody seems to know it. But I just need to re-stress, because
yes,
now even now that you have a lot of Chinese, right, who are here in the U.S. and sort of know both cultures, and even a lot of foreigners do actually speak pretty good Chinese. So, but to really get to know China and work there and try to get, because what do you want to do? If you're a project, you need to get people to love your project the way you do. Get them to believe you and have fun together and drink and eat and talk about the project. And it's really difficult if you're really just going to have someone next to you sort of translating it. It's important. It's important. I'm not saying it can't be done. I mean, a lot of people go there. There's people who in the China market, I guess, who have not, don't know Chinese. But if we're starting out now, I would say it's a really important thing to be able to do. That being said, too, though, even if you speak a little bit, make an effort, Chinese love that. So that's of course that's a great thing too. So I wouldn't say just because you think you won't be fluent. And by the way, to this day, I don't think I'm not fluent, I think, at all. But I mean, I can get along. I understand. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. But so it is important. So there's that.
In episode 31, called Controversial Filmmaker Attracts Awards and Death Threats, filmmaker Chris Nebe balances propaganda and journalism in his controversial documentaries. Chris emphasizes the U.S. and China need to work together. Problems cannot be solved with violence. He talks about how we live in a global village. Let's listen.
You see, everything has two sides, but there's always a third side. And the third side is the one which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, earlier, as far as perhaps, advice to the listeners, you said you have to walk a fine line. Obviously, you have to pass censorship. So, yes, that is, if you want to reap the benefits of getting into the China market, you definitely have to walk a fine line. And so that is...
because we're dealing in a different culture.
Right.
And today it's almost equal with American film market.
Right, and too big to ignore. I mean, they're you can't. Hollywood needs China. China needs Hollywood. So it's got to. We need to figure out a way to work together. I mean, that's just how it is.
And it's very interesting. And if we learn to work together and respect, I always like this reference to the global village,
right,
where everybody has his little house, and in this house he rules and does what he wants, as long as he doesn't trouble the neighbor. If he starts to trouble the neighbor, it's wrong, because it's not necessary unless there is a reason. But then this reason can be solved again in peace and harmony. It cannot be solved with violence, because violence does not get us nowhere. We look back in history and we see that violence is totally wrong. Right. And violence does not further anything. The only thing is to be in peace and harmony, to create win-win situation for both parties.
In episode 32, entitled Is AI the Solution to Finding Good Scripts?, producer and distribution exec David L. Suarez talks about the challenge of finding good scripts and how to break into the China market. David suggests you read about China, learn about the culture. He also offers a fast-track alternative to getting meetings. Here it is.
First, read about China as much as you can. Learn about the Chinese culture as much as you can. And then travel to China. Stay there for 6 months, 1 year before presenting your projects. Mm-hmm. Live there. And then after you understand the culture, because it's very different.
Right.
It's very different approach, how you talk to them, how you deal with them, how you put together a project with them is very, very different than the way we do it here in the Western world. So you really have to stay there for 6 months, 1 year, meet as many people as you can, get to understand them, and then you can go ahead and start presenting your ideas or looking for producers or investors or, all that kind of stuff. But first, make sure you understand the Chinese culture. If you can have a friend or a company that can show you around, that can explain you, that can advise you, that can, in a certain way, hang out with you for a few months. I will strongly advise that, because in China, it is needed.
Well, that sounds like a side business for your company.
Yeah, maybe. I just thought about that.
You could be a consultant. You should start writing that book.
I should write about that, yeah.
Yeah, that's your second book. And also start a consulting business. Definitely. You already got the company in China. Why not? In episode 33, entitled Action Star Rises in the East, action star Chris Collins, who is an action actor and action director made in Hong Kong, he talks about being discovered and the differences between Hollywood and Chinese film financing. Chris says, "What can you do for me question is the wrong question. Working from the bottom up and having the right attitude can lead to more opportunities." Let's listen.
I would say have a set of skills before you start trying to get into it. You meet a lot.
Liam Neeson.
There you go. Yeah,
I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, it's like you meet so many people. I've met so many people that want to be in this industry, but the mindset is more about like, what can you do for me? How can you give me this? How can you make me into this? And it's like,
what can you do for me? No.
Yeah, I don't think it works like that. You
doesn't work like that.
You got to just work your ass off at what you love doing, and if that can transfer into a skill that is going to be beneficial for them, then okay, you let them know. Like, hey, I can help you with this, and
exactly,
and I can provide you with this, and I think it will make your project better, that's how you go to it, instead of meeting after meeting you see people like, what can you do for me? Like, exactly. I am the best, I am the greatest, and it's like no. And number two, or like part two of that answer would be, work from the bottom up. Don't have an ego. A lot of people they want to just be like, I want to be an action star, I want to do this, and it's like, okay, but you have no experience. You have no experience whatsoever of how to be in front of a camera, how to even adjust your posture, how to speak slow enough and clear enough and pronunciate your words clear enough that it doesn't sound like you're just rambling through, and things like that. It's, be an extra. Know what it means to be an extra. Be a stuntman. Know what it means to be a stuntman or woman, and then take those small supporting roles where you say nothing, they barely see your face, but do it awesome. Like, do it, put all your effort into that. And if you get seen, you get seen. If you don't, at least you did your best. You put forth your best effort, and you had that opportunity, and be satisfied. Well, I always say never be satisfied, but maybe be happy with the fact that you were actually there and you did what you think was necessary to get another opportunity. I think that's huge.
In episode 34, How to Become a Game Writer Jordan DeFazio talks about the opportunity for Western game writers in China. He also discusses the freedom game writing offers over screenwriting. Jordan suggests you should be ready to throw away what you've written at a moment's notice. He adds you need to carry out the team's vision, but somehow also make it yours too. Here's what he said. Now, what advice would you give those aspiring to tap into the Chinese game writing market?
I would just say, make your connections with people, and be fluid. Be ready to throw away what you've written and
that's right.
At a moment's notice, because that's the hard part, right? Like, because when I'm writing screenplays, I do take it personal because it's my vision, right? Right. In game writing, you just got to let that go, and that's tough to do. But that has kind of like transformed me somehow, right? It makes you this kind of like writing, I won't say writing machine, but you just always gotta like be at the top of your game. Right.
Yeah. And leave the ego at the door.
Exactly. And you don't want your team to fail. So
that's right.
Yeah. And you got to carry out the artist's vision, the producer's vision, the market's vision, and you got to somehow make it yours too. Like, you got to find a way to make it like something that, where when you play it, I can see myself underneath, even though, I again mentioned that I don't take it personal, but I do have to make each story somehow a part of me,
Right.
So that's a key point.
In episode 35, called Tips on Writing for a Chinese Audience, China writer Marc Handler discusses the benefits of working with a Chinese writing partner. He discusses China bashing and China's talent management problem. Marc echoes how to succeed anywhere, but especially China. You need to offer something of value, such as specialized knowledge, distribution, or investment. Take the long view. He suggests you partner with Chinese writers. He says he couldn't write a story for China himself. He needed that authentic voice, and he found it by partnering with a Chinese writer. Let's take a listen.
So, I think of, on that score, I think of John Kennedy's famous statement, a kind of reversioning of that. He said, don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I think when you approach another country, it's the same thing. Right. You can't show up and say, well, they have a big market. What can I get from them? You have to show up and say, what can I give them?
Right.
Can you bring them skills? Can you bring them investment? Can you bring them distribution? Can you bring them specialized knowledge? Like we were just talking about the agents. What can you bring them that's going to make you valuable to them? And then be prepared to share that generously with them. As you mentioned, I do a lot of speaking for the Ministry of Culture in China, universities, etc. And then you have to take a long view. Chinese culture is famous for the long view. They're very explicit about it. You know what I'm talking about. Whereas America is famous for the short view, quick get in, get out kind of approach. So in China, you have to take the long view. You have to go there and be prepared to put in a lot of time and effort. And you always have to make sure it's a win-win situation. That's their philosophy when they go to other countries, and you need to come to their country with that idea. Whatever it is that you're presenting, it's about how it's going to benefit them and you at the same time, so everybody benefits. The one other thing I would mention on that is something that, again, you're ahead of the curve on. Partner with Chinese writers. I've been living in China a long time. There's no way I could write a script for China myself. It's just not possible. I can write a story. I can structure a story, but I must partner with Chinese writers. And I know you're already trying to do that. Part of your effort, Caryn, is to hook up Chinese and American writers, which is terrific. It's
Thank you.
Absolutely necessary. If you're American and you think, hey, I can write a good story, about dragons. No, it's not going to happen. You need to partner up. And quickly to give some context for that, if you look at a movie like The Great Wall, it has a 35% rating on critics' rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 40% among the public. I mean, it was not a well-liked movie. No Chinese writers. All of the writers who wrote the story and the script are all Westerners. So you have a story that's just not going to resonate with Chinese people. And we talked about Mulan. Mulan is the same. I love that. I love the effort, but they made a big mistake by not including Chinese writers. Right. And it didn't resonate with Chinese people the way we wanted it to. And if you compare that, for example, to Coco, the Pixar film, right. That was right. It was developed by Lee Unkrich. He's a white guy, been at Pixar forever. It was his baby, but of course he brought in a Mexican co-author on it because that's how you got the authentic feel of Coco, and it worked for both cultures very, very well. So you need to partner up. That's also an important part of the equation.
I appreciate that Marc mentioned the China List's free service to producers and writer members. We have a page called Find a Writing Partner, and in it you can overcome writer's block, adapt your script for the China market, divide and conquer your workload, get instant feedback, and gain a new perspective on your work. So if you're looking for a Chinese writer or a Western writer or any writer, you can post a notice on our free Find a Writing Partner jobs page. Just go to https:// CHNLAST.com and head over to the Find a Writing Partner page. Now, in episode 36, Acting in China, Pros and Cons, American actor Davy Williams talks about the differences between acting in Hollywood and China. He also gives advice on getting steady work and the challenges of Chinese distribution. Davy talks about the pros and cons of acting in China. He says Beijing is the film capital more than Shanghai. He also offers tips on making films in China that would pass censorship. Let's take a listen. What are the pros and cons for a Westerner acting in a Chinese film? You mentioned the craft services might be an issue. Anything else? Or are there pros? Are there other cons?
So the pro is that someone like me that speaks the language and is good at what I do and decent looking is that you can have a lot of steady work and TV dramas as a middle kind of middle to top range of a character. You're never going to be the lead.
Right.
Now, when I first got to China, I started to have some success, and I would write down my goal. Yes, I want to be like Jackie Chan. I want to be like a lead in China. I'm going to be famous.
Right.
But it won't happen. It didn't happen. The reason is they won't allow it to happen for one reason, and then they see most foreigners as looking pretty similar as it is.
Okay.
Unless you're the lead, you're not going to be recognized on the streets. And so that dream of becoming famous over there didn't happen. But I'm happy that I at least made a good living for a few years doing what I love. So. Yes.
Well, you have quite a lot of experience, so that I'm sure will translate over here. Now, what advice can you give those aspiring to tap into the Chinese market? Besides, don't do vampires and zombies in your film.
I would say learn the language, and that always helps get into doors and make everybody remember you over there. And it helps to live over there, especially Beijing. That's where most content is made or started. And lastly, I would just, if you are making content or script writing or making movies, just remember it's got to be fairly pro-China or fairly neutral politically. No extensive violence or sexual situations or language. And then get name actors if you can, and it has a good chance of being in the theaters and online over there.
Does it have to be mainland Chinese name actors? Could it be Hong Kong or Taiwanese, or is it mainly they're looking for mainland Chinese?
Oh, I meant just American name.
Okay. Okay, great.
I like to have the occasional, or they really require at least one A-list actor in most of their movies in the theaters over there that are American movies. So, yeah.
And when you say Beijing is where the content is, would you say for a Westerner or an actor, choose Beijing over, say, Shanghai?
Yeah, for sure. All of the production companies are located in Beijing. So they start pre-production there. The actors go to auditions there. And then they move out for production to places like Hangdian, which is like all these little old school movie studios and stuff. And but it all starts in Beijing.
In episode number 37, called Lessons on Fundraising in China, Scott Einbinder, a producer, executive, investor, and China consultant, discusses the challenges of fundraising in China, but has encouraging words about Western-educated Chinese executives. Scott suggests you should strive to make friends, not just business associates with future Chinese partners. Also, Chinese junior execs, 40 years old and younger, who studied in the U.S., Europe, or Australia, speak perfect English and understand both sides, China and the U.S., better than their bosses. Scott has encouraging words for Hollywood regarding working with China. Let's take a listen.
Be patient. You have to be patient. I think there's a lot of folks in China who want to learn from people in the West, especially in Hollywood. Establish relationships as friends, not just as business people. That's important in China, getting to know people and having drinks or dinners or meals with them is part of the culture. That's important. I would say younger people, in their 20s and 30s, who many have gone to school in the West, in the US, either undergraduate or graduate school. They speak perfect English, but China's still their home. So forging those relationships is important. I'm obviously older than that. So a lot of the guys that I work with, not just guys, a lot of the people I work with don't always speak as good English. But I think I feel like everybody 35, maybe 40 and younger who went to school in Europe and Australia and the US, they're savvy, they're smart, they understand both sides. There's still a big future. And those are great people to do business with because they're a little bit more flexible. They understand both sides.
Right.
Some of the older folks, 45 and above, who are more traditional and have been running the media business, are not as comfortable doing business with the West just because they don't speak English. They haven't spent as much time here.
Right.
They didn't necessarily go to university here. And a lot of those people have younger people working for them, and they're brilliant. The Chinese value education. Younger Chinese value relationships. And they're great people to do business with and work with. And I work with a lot of young people that I talk to regularly because they're really smart. They've kind of put the brain power of what they've learned on both sides together, and they're going to succeed. And there's also great, talented writers and directors in China, great hustling young producers, and they all want to work with the West, especially Hollywood.
Wow, that's encouraging. That's encouraging.
Yeah. No, it's true though. It's true. They just look at things a little differently, maybe. But,
okay, I'm encouraged. Okay. In episode number 38, entitled "How to Find Story Ideas," producer and tech whiz Keith Colea advises on how to find story ideas. He shares the right way to pitch and how to attract film producers. Keith says if you have some talent and want to make a movie, just go to China and make Chinese movies. Your best chances to get a movie off the ground is in China. That's where the money is. There are also stories you can mine about Chinese people coming to the West, which allows you to make movies in the West. Then it becomes a Chinese movie that can travel. Let's hear what he has to say.
You got to want to make Chinese movies because that's the upcoming place to be making movies. You got to want to just make movies first. And you got to realize that, well, China is the place that it's happening. So my best chances of getting a movie off the ground, if I'm good, if I can tell a freaking story, which most people have a hard time at, is to actually just go to China and do all of the things that I was talking about doing.
Right.
And get into the China culture and get to understand the China culture. You can't, making Chinese movies in China is what I suggest, because that's where the money is, and that's where the new market is, and that's about to explode, and that's where all the opportunities are. But as far as types of stories, I have a friend right now who's going to Canada to shoot his Chinese movie, which is going to be partially in English and partially in Chinese. Because the reason I bring this up is I was just about to say that make Chinese movies in Chinese for Chinese people and tell a good story, and you'll be fine. And you'll make money and you get to make your movies. But this is just an example of me being wrong. Because I'm sure there's people listening that are going, he's full of shit. But, this guy's going to Canada. He's got a true story about what happened to a Chinese student that was going to school in America. Uh-huh. And the father ends up going over to look for the daughter. And it's sort of like this suspense mystery crime with some action and brilliant story. I mean, the guy's got a translator who has to translate for you, and that's another thing. I'll segue into in a minute. But so here's going to be a story that's actually going to be one of those Chinese movies that can actually travel because it takes place in America. They're speaking English. The stars are speaking Chinese. We get to know what he's saying through the translator. And so the Chinese get to watch this movie because it's about a Chinese father who is traveling to help his daughter who's a student in America. And we all know America is a dangerous place, and they're right. But speaking of, so that's the odd rule to making Chinese movies for Chinese people in a Chinese language. But that's what I would suggest, making Chinese movies for Chinese people.
In episode 39, entitled Lights, Camera, Discrimination, China-based documentary filmmaker Lo Tong and her creative director, Matthew Barron, discuss why the film industry needs more women on film sets, what to do when your investor and director don't see eye to eye, and how to benefit from job rejections. Now, Matthew suggests not looking at China as a mountain of money. There's a wealth of stories and a huge talent pool. China isn't just wushu movies. He also talks about the growth of documentaries in China. Lo Tong reminds us a good start is to be friendly. In previous podcasts, some guests have joked about how Americans in the past were in a hurry to get down to business, whereas in China, execs want to get to know you personally before they discuss business. Let's listen in.
I think it's an interesting turn of phrase that I hear a lot, to tap into the China market.
Being friendly to start with is always something.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think when you put it as tap into the China market, and no critique of you here, Caryn, because I know that this is a phrase that gets used a lot. It sounds like you're like, oh, there's a fountain of money there. We want some of it. We should fill up our bucket with some of the China money. And I think that's firstly a little bit ignorant, and secondly deprives you of such great creative opportunities. This isn't just the world's largest cinema audience, money. This is a whole diversity of cultures, ideas, creatives, talents, collaborators. And in the same way that movies pour into China either through theatrical or through other distribution means and find a great audience, coming from America to China, it would be great to see more of that going in the opposite direction. There are China isn't just wushu movies, it isn't just martial arts movies, although there are many fantastic examples of that genre. It's diverse, complex storytelling. I mean, even from our sort of types of documentary, I mean, there's amazing history of documentary production in this country, and certainly domestically. I think it's fair to say the documentary is starting on an up again at the moment. We're not just us, but there's been a number of really amazing documentaries distributed in China just in the past 12 months. I hope that. Yeah, as I say, that would be my advice. Don't think of it as tapping in and getting money. Think of it as a culture, a community, a talent pool that you can benefit from being a part of at all levels. Always think of it as a collaboration, never as a money grab.
Yeah,
right, exactly. Lo Tong, you echo that or anything different?
Well. Practically, because I run my own business, and I'm also a kind of business person. Business terms, if you start, you getting into a relationship with a friendly gesture, it's always a good start. And respect whatever your business partner is doing, that maybe will form into a better collaboration. That is something that I would advise or future business partners for anyone who wants to establish certain kind of relationship to find a partner with, then being friendly is always a good start.
Well, that's the show. I appreciate your support. Please help us out by rating this show and sharing it on your social channels. producers and talent reps, membership to the China list is free. You can also post calls for tailored submissions on our private writing jobs page. Just go to https://chnlist.com. And remember, starting December 22nd, 2021, you can download scripts directly from the China List website. Writers, get your material seen in Hollywood and China, and you can post requests for Chinese or Western writing partners on our private writing jobs page. Just go to https://chnlist.com and sign up. If you want a writing partner, navigate to our Find a Writing Partner page, and your post will appear on our private writing jobs page. Writers, remember to upload your scripts to the China List. The more seamless the process, the faster you can get your script optioned or get your writing sample read and get that writing assignment. That's a wrap for the best advice of 2021. We wish you happy holidays and a happy new year. We also wish you all an excellent 2022. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you at the premiere. Bye. 一会儿见.